Hello and welcome to the Conor Canney Podcast with me, Conor Canney. And in this podcast, I want to talk about ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or Hyperactive Disorder. Okay, so ADHD is a type of cognitive wiring which results in hyperactivity, impulsiveness. It can result in organisational difficulties. It can result in many different things. It can result in like memory function. It can result in lots of different things, and can manifest itself in many different behaviours. Right? I'm not going to go into too many details in this podcast, but if you're someone who doesn't know much about ADHD, then in the future I'll be putting up videos, making podcasts and putting up videos that go into more depth about it. But all I want to do in this little podcast is just say that ADHD is something that I have only been diagnosed with personally in the last maybe about 2.5 years ago, about a month or so before my 24th birthday. So I'm about 26 and a half now. Right. And when I got a diagnosis, prior to me having a diagnosis of ADHD, some of my friends and my mum and myself thought I might have ADHD or bipolar or something like that, right? And then my life suddenly made sense, and it was just way easier to just figure out, okay, you're wired differently to most people. How has this benefited you in the past? How has this helped you? And what does this explain the things you've had challenges with? What can you now work on? And how can you utilise this to your advantage? And how have you utilised it in the past, even though you didn't know it's ADHD, to your advantage? And how have other people utilised it? So if you think you may have ADHD, then I just want to briefly say in this little podcast that, especially if you're somebody who has struggled a lot with a lot of different things, organisation, hyperactivity, your mind's always racing, you're always pacing around, you have a bunch of ideas and you start projects and you don't ever finish them, right? That's all to do with the dopamine levels in your mind, to do with neurological pathways, to do with your prefrontal cortex, all kinds of things, right? Don't fear, right? Some of the most successful actors, artists, inventors, musicians, writers, directors, chefs, entrepreneurs are wired this way. Many of them have actually officially been diagnosed with ADHD, right? Some of them is just speculated as to whether or not they have ADHD, and their personality types and the way they work has led friends of theirs or them themselves, and or the general public to speculate as to whether or not they have ADHD, and they come to the conclusion, these people are wired this way, right? And it's great for creativity. Oh, and comedians as well, right? In fact, if you check out one of my other channels, Conor Canney Music, right, my music channel, I've made a song or a spoken word track with a music video about this kind of thing, about this exact topic, right? And all I want to say in this mini little podcast is that I wouldn't worry if you have ADHD, if you do have ADHD. If you're worried that you might have ADHD, or if there's someone, a family member or a spouse or a friend or someone in your life that you care about that has ADHD, or you think might have ADHD, there is hope for them. All they have to do is learn how to utilize it to their advantage. There's no changing the ADHD, right? So this is the way they're wired. There's no changing it. It's just they just have to build their life around it, right? And once you realise that, it can be your greatest asset. Now, I'll be making other podcasts, right? And you may be watching this in the future once these podcasts are made. And if you type in ADHD with Conor, whatever, right? You'll find at some point there'll be a bunch of them talking about going more into detail about different aspects of ADHD and how to utilise it. And maybe you're someone who does actually know they have ADHD, whether you've been diagnosed or not. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But for this one, I just wanted to bring it to people's attention. The main message in this podcast is don't worry about it, or don't worry if you think someone else has got it. It's not the end of the world. It can be your greatest asset. It can be a creative superpower, right? And it gives you the ability to do all kinds of things like hyper-focus and multitask and create things, and just it can be awesome, right? And there are ways of managing it other than medication as well. I'm not a doctor, by the way, so don't take this as professional advice. I'm just showing my experience and the experience of other people I know, right? So there is hope for you. Don't worry about it. I've got ADHD, and I have learned how to utilise it over the last few years. Okay. Anyway, peace and love, my fellow ADHDers, anyone who potentially thinks they do have ADHD, and anyone else who decides to listen to this or randomly clicked on this video. Take care, guys and girls. Have a great day. Peace and love.